The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Some fishermen are still refusing to evacuate amid dangers posed by the Taal Volcano. According to Batangas PDRRMO head Lito Castro, these are due to fishery operators that fear that their fish will not or will die if not taken care of. Castro adds that the LGUs and the DENR are working hand in hand to help solve this dilemma.
Yun po nangangalagat nagpapatuka ng mga isda. Yan po talaga ang aming kinakaharap ngayon kasi sila po ay nagmamakaawa na mapatuka yung isda dahil mamamatay daw. Tulong-tulong po ang LGU, ang Protected Area Management Board ng DENR na siyang responsible po diyan. So tulong-tulong po kami para matunasan po yung problema.
Meanwhile, other residents of several barangays in the towns of Agoncillo and Laurel have been evacuated following Taal Volcano's magmatic unrest. Some residents have also started stockpiling food and N95 masks as they fear the situation will escalate. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro has the story.
Though many affected residents are now in evacuation sites, Jeremy De Leon, a fisherman in Barangay Buso-Buso, refused to leave his livelihood behind.
Kaya mahirap dahil may ganito ako. Kumitrabaho ko rito bago sa ititingka doon.
Another resident decided to stay put until her family is complete.
Yung asawa ko po kasi nasa laot. Alam naman ho kami ililikas yung asawa ko nasa laot.
Families residing in barangays within the 7-kilometer danger zone from Taal were evacuated, including over 1,000 residents from the towns of Laurel and Agoncillo. Sulfur dioxide emitted by the Taal volcano caused residents to experience difficulty in breathing, fevers, and nausea. But for local fishermen, it's just another day in the lake.
So in total, these fishermen were able to catch 29 kilos worth of fish, and they would earn around 500 to 1,000 after selling it because some of the fishes still got rejected. Now this is the exact reason why these residents chose to stay, because they still have to make a living. Even with the threat of the volcanic eruption, they still have to make a living.
With volcanic activity still relatively tamed compared to last year's eruption, the local government is finding it hard to convince residents to evacuate.
Yung lindol kasi ngayon is parang uugalan, tapos wala na. So kaya yung mga tao kampante na magstay. Pero kung ito ay katulad last year, malamang wala na rin kami dito.
Natakot din naman ho, pero kailangan mo din ho talagang maglakas ng loob dahil dito din ho yung hanap buhay namin eh.
Residents who fear another major eruption meanwhile began stockpiling food items and N95 masks, causing supplies to run low. But authorities say evacuation centers have enough food supply to cater to evacuees. I'm Jacob Lazaro and we are One News.
The Health Department warns residents of areas near Taal Volcano of possible health risks associated with the unrest. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire says exposure to sulfur dioxide released by the volcano may cause skin and eye irritations and breathing discomfort. Vergeire reminds the public to be vigilant of said health protocols and to continue wearing face masks.
Pinapaalalahanan po ng Kagawaran ng Kalusugan ang lahat ng nakatira sa malapit sa bulkan o sa mga lugar na maaring maapektuhan ng mga aktibidades ng bulkan na mag-ingat at manatiling nakaantabay para sa anumang magiging abiso ng fieldworks o ng inyong local government unit.
With more evacuations underway due to the activity in the Taal Volcano, the NDRRMC has reminded local government units to enforce health protocols to avoid the spread of COVID-19. In an interview on The Big Story, NDRRMC spokesperson Mark Timbal said one of the biggest concerns during evacuation efforts is ensuring that residents are following health protocols amid this health crisis. So far, the agency has reported around 1,400 evacuees staying in 12 evacuation centers.
And we are insisting and reminding our local government units to ensure that the minimum health standards are followed in every step of the way, from getting our mga kababayan from their houses to transporting them and then to the evacuation centers. These procedures for protection against COVID-19 must be implemented at all phases.
Now, along with this, Timbal said that they have already begun to decongest some of evacuation centers. He also noted that the NDRRMC plans to provide additional tents to impose one family per tent arrangement in evacuation centers.
Unti-unti po nadi-decongest, lumuluwag na po yung ating mga evacuation center, and this will be done over the weekend going to Monday. We are also looking into the deployment of the vaccination rollout in the evacuation centers.
Residents near the Taal Volcano Island deal with more than just the danger of volcanic arrest as the threat of COVID-19 in evacuation centers loom. Romel Lopez with the details.
It's a double whammy for residents near Taal Volcano as they grapple with the volcano's unrest and the risk of catching COVID-19. There are now makeshift isolation facilities in evacuation centers just in case worse things happens. The local government admit it only has limited resources and was caught off guard by Taal Volcano's activity. Volcanologists are still on the watch for continuous upwelling on Taal Volcano's main crater. According to PHIVOLCS data, its recent sulfur dioxide emission already has a daily average of more than 13,000 tons. As for nearby towns, they are now already on standby if they have to evacuate as well. But like in Laurel and Agoncillo, they have already resigned to the fact that the process would be tedious. Residents in Agoncillo and Laurel in Batangas have started evacuating. As they ran for safety, some failed to observe physical distancing.
Lumikas kami dahil ng bulkan. Hindi namin alam, sir eh. Hindi ko nga nasaduhan aming bahay.
Authorities said a total of 1,139 people were moved out from Laurel. But upon reaching the evacuation centers, residents are now faced with the problem of overcrowding and possible COVID-19 transmission.
Medyo medyo kinakabahan din baka kasi magkaroon ng may COVID, di hawa-hawa na kami lahat.
The local government of Laurel admits that despite their contingency plans, they were caught off guard by Taal's eruption yesterday. 9 schools were also open to accommodate evacuees. The Social Welfare Department also set up tents to give additional temporary shelter. Non-evacuees are barred from entering to avoid possible transmission. Mayor Joan Amo of Laurel says the town had tallied a little over 180 COVID-19 cases since March last year, 3 of which are active. But the mayor noted that none of the active cases were from the areas asked to evacuate. Isolation facilities were also placed in the centers for possible COVID-19 cases.
Po lahat ng evacuation center natin, nilagyan natin ng isolation facilities. Para po kung sakaling meron pong lagnatin o kung ano man, madali natin silang maihiwalay.
Amo also said that they can only sustain the current evacuation setup for a week and will need the help of the national government if the unrest continues. The DSWD is also planning to proposition 10,000 food packs in the area and augment the funds of the LGUs affected.
And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. President Duterte took another swipe at Senator Manny Pacquiao as political wranglings between the two allies escalate. Pacquiao, however, says he only wanted to help Duterte in his fight against corruption. Maricel Halili with the report.
To maintain the equilibrium sa lahat, consider me a candidate for the vice presidency at this time.
President Duterte has announced he should be considered as a possible candidate for vice president in 2022. Duterte admits that he was using talks of his possible candidacy as political leverage.
Posturing yan eh. Political posturing so that they would not treat you badly. Kasi paalis na ako eh.
But Duterte says that his decision could still change after he had promised to support Leyte Congressman Martin Romualdez on his possible vice presidential bid.
So if Romualdez would hang on to that commitment, sabi ko nga, if there is space lang, kung wala,
Duterte meanwhile took another job at Senator Manny Pacquiao. The senator accepted Duterte's challenge and named the health department as one of the agencies allegedly involved in corruption.
Do not go anywhere, finish and find out the corruption that you are talking about. Eh kung mag-report ka lang dalawa isang buwan, then I would say that you are a
Duterte advised his officials to cooperate in any investigation, but believed Pacquiao's action were fueled by his political ambitions.
You know, when you are a champion in boxing, it doesn't mean to say that you are a champion in politics.
Pacquiao, who accepted Duterte's dare, said he was not trying Duterte when he mentioned these corruption allegations. The senator said he only wanted to help him advance his advocacy.
Naiintindihan ko rin naman dahil baka busy ang Pangulo. Pero matagal na ako nang naghihingi ng audit sa atin.
Despite the controversy, Pacquiao clarified that he is not closing his door in the presidency. But for now, he will focus first on his training for his upcoming boxing fight in August.
Itong boxing po nating haluan ng politika. Kaya ako nandito, nagpapatuloy na lumalaban dahil masaya ako dahil nagkakaisa ang sabay ng Pilipino po ang mga dito.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
The Integrated Bar of the Philippines says President Duterte may run for vice president in 2022 as it is allowed by the Constitution. IBP President Domingo Cayosa adds that the Constitution only prohibits re-election, thus there is no legal impediment if Duterte runs for Vice President next year. Recall that the President has been frequently changing his mind on the matter, but his latest pronouncement is that he plans to run for Vice President in 2022 to, quote, maintain equilibrium for all. Vice President Leni Robredo has asked the Presidential Electoral Tribunal to dismiss the motion for reconsideration filed by former Senator Bongbong Marcos. Marcos previously filed a motion for reconsideration asking the PET to reverse its previous dismissal ruling. Robredo, however, emphasized that Marcos merely presented arguments similar to the electoral protest that was ordered dismissed last February. She also cited the Supreme Court's recounting of votes, where she even widened her lead by 15,093 votes in Marcos' chosen pilot provinces of Negros Oriental, Iloilo, and Camarines Sur. Right now, available vaccines provide protection against known coronavirus variants. For how long can we depend on the protection of anti-COVID jabs? Johns Hopkins' Andrew Pikosh tells us in this Bloomberg report.
Professor Pacquiao, I feel like I Google this every night and get a different answer, so please provide some professional advice and guidance here. What does it mean the vaccines protect people against the Delta variant, that they protect people against the coronavirus? Is it simply that they don't get fatally ill, or is it that they actually do not get sick and cannot transmit the disease?
Yeah, so with Delta, the data is still coming out. We have about 3 studies that are out there right now that show that if you're fully vaccinated, meaning for the mRNA vaccines in particular, that you've gotten both doses and you're at least 2 to 3 weeks out from your booster dose, in those situations, you're seeing protection against all aspects of disease, severe disease, hospitalization, as well as what we call symptomatic infection. So the data with Delta looks good, although again, it's just a few studies right now, and we need more data from that. The risk though is not minimal, right? Vaccines are not perfect, and with a variant that's more transmissible, you might expect to have a slightly increased risk, even if you're vaccinated, of getting infected. But the vaccines are protecting, and that's the important message to get out there. When we talk about surges with Delta, we're probably talking about surges that are going to be primarily in the unvaccinated population, because the vaccinated individuals in our population will be protected.
Dr. Pacquiao, is it concerning to you that the Delta variant is something like 60% more transmissible, according to some studies, than even the B117 variant, which was itself much more transmissible than the original strain? The trajectory here does not seem to be that great. Are we seeing a similar type of evolution in the Gamma strains that people are picking up and others?
So far, Delta is the one that I think we're most worried about, because that increased transmission is really giving the virus what you can call a new platform to accumulate more mutations on. We're always concerned about mutations that'll evade vaccine-induced immunity, but those mutations put on a highly transmissible virus makes it a higher risk. We have something we call viral fitness that we measure all the time, and a virus that's more fit can handle some mutations that may be a little deleterious, but it still lets that virus circulate in the population. So as we get variants that are better and better at circulating, the potential for getting the vaccine escape mutations in those backgrounds represents a risk that scientists like myself are very, very concerned about.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later again at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.